All right, we're ready to begin. So we'll just take a moment to check in with ourselves and see if there's anything that would be helpful to let go of before we begin our meditation practice. And so this is the process that I refer to often as purification. So it's purification not in the sense of sin or something that we might think of in the Western world, but it's really anything that is going to stand in the way between you and peacefulness, between you and meditating quietly. So you think about that. Sometimes there's a little anger, sometimes there's a little stress, a little anxiety, sometimes a bit of sadness. So these are all things that we can become aware of, and then in an objective way, we can set them down and return to them later with a refreshed mind and a refreshed heart and spirit, and we can tend to them with wisdom. So it's a very helpful practice, and it really does work. So think about that for a moment, anything that would be helpful to let go of. Putting those things down. I'll sound the bell. Let there be peace. Let there be peace. Let there be peace. All right, welcome everyone. And one thing I was going to ask is, we have not had a trick-or-treater here at all, but I'm wondering if anyone, if someone happens to knock on the door, if anyone would be willing to go and give them some candy.
Sure. Where's the candy?
It is.
You're not, yeah.
It's in the kitchen, on the table in there in a big bowl.
Okay.
So
You're not in the neighborhood, so I was wondering if you're gonna get trick-or-treaters, but.
yeah, haven't had anybody all day. And
Do you have your outside light on?
not the front light, but the side light and the back light are on. So it's
I'll go.
okay.
Yeah, I can.
We don't get so many
Thank you.
kids in our
I
neighborhood
live
anymore.
real rural, so.
Sure.
I don't get any.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
We
get
used to, but now they all
Well,
down
I'm
to
not
Southview.
gonna
You
Right.
gotta know that.
Yeah, they go to my old
You're
neighborhood.
saving money now.
Yes. Yeah, I really
Everybody
do.
going.
The neighborhood I used to live in, 1 year we counted them, and we had 299 trick-or-treaters who
Oh
came to
my
the house.
gosh. Where you were lived before?
Yeah,
Well,
over
because
on
the houses are so
Parkview.
close together, and so the kids can.
And there are actually traffic jams as parents pull down there to drop off their kids
Yeah.
and then to pick them up again. But it's kind of a nice self-contained,
Fine, shut that
nice
off.
self-contained
Good
area.
candy.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and expensive too. We would spend
Yeah.
a couple $100 easily.
Oh.
So yeah. So this year, 1 bag of candy. Probably
When it's
nobody
gone,
will
it's
come.
gone.
It's when it's gone, it's gone. Yeah, and it'll probably be gone in my
Yeah,
belly
that was
over the
thinking
course of
about
the day.
Airplane mode. It
Dangerous.
must have got bumped together.
Oh, Cheryl, do you get trick-or-treaters?
Not many.
Yeah.
Not many. We
I know,
we just don't
we
have a lot of
know.
little kids in our neighborhood anymore. We get a few, but maybe some from Grace Place, because we live on South Dakota.
Mhm.
So we get a few people, but
Well, let's take a minute to get comfortable for meditation. So whatever anyone would like to do.
These are nice,
Yeah,
aren't they? Love them.
yeah, I think they're great. Just a little something for your
I
feet
tried
to
it
rest
last
on.
week and I thought, now why haven't I done this before, these things here?
Yeah, and it also keeps your feet off the cold floor too, so they stay a little warmer. You want one of those, Elaine, under your feet?
Well,
Try it, it's nice.
oh,
Yeah.
It'll help your knees
Probably will. Yeah, probably will. Be a little bit of an
It
angle
will.
for them.
for yoga.
And if you don't like them, you can always just kind of kick them away. So, yeah. So everyone, just get comfortable in your body. Look for a little bit of symmetry so that your weight is evenly distributed and supported evenly by all your muscles. Sit with, if you're sitting, sit with your back straight, but not tight or rigid, not stiff. a little bit of flexibility to the back. The image I've been sharing of, if you imagine that your sit bones and your legs are the roots of a lotus flower in the bottom of a lotus pond, and your back is like the stem of that lotus flower coming up through the water, and your head is the blossom, the flower, and the buoyancy supports the stem and helps to keep it straight, but at the same time there's a flexibility and a fluidity to it. So that image you may find helpful. The buoyancy of the head is somewhat helpful as a visual image. And we let the eyes close just to eliminate the visual distractions. And it can be helpful to tuck the chin forward ever so slightly. That can take a little bit of strain off the back of the neck or the shoulders. So, and then the breath, let it be natural through your nose. If you're comfortable breathing through your nose, if not, breathe in any way you need to. But if possible, breathe through the nose, and we won't manipulate the breath in any way during this meditation. So with that said, I'm going to sound the bell, and then I'll start to guide us through. Follow the sound of the bell as it fades into silence. And let that silence be an invitation to turn your senses inward. And you can let go of one of the strong habits of the mind, which is to be projected outward and to be engaged with the outside world. Instead, just turn your senses inward and become aware of the sense of presence you have in your own body as you sit here or lay here. There's a feeling of being present in the body. Just experience that feeling. Let it center you. Let it ground you. Become fully aware of being here in this moment. And then with that feeling of presence established, that feeling of awareness, let's bring our awareness together up to the top of the head and to the area of the scalp. And we'll just focus here on the scalp for a few moments, focusing on any physical sensations that come up. So it requires a little patience, it requires a little bit of waiting, a little bit of watching. But as you observe the scalp, you will most likely notice some sort of sensation. And those sensations manifest as temperature quite often, may feel warm or cool. And then that warmth or coolness, it may be either internal to the body or external in the room. Sometimes there will be a feeling, a sensation of air movement. And sometimes there'll be a sensation on the surface of the skin, which could be a tickle or an itch, or just a feeling of pulsation or energy. So we're just opening up the awareness to whatever is happening in the scalp and just observing, watching as sensations arise and pass away. And as we're observing these sensations, it's quite possible that you'd run across some tension somewhere in the muscles of the scalp. And so if you discover tension, just allow it to leave the body. Notice it and release it. Give it permission to go. Let it leave unconditionally, without developing any negativity toward the idea of tension, just letting it go. And we find what remains is a peacefulness, a natural peacefulness. And so now from the scalp, we can move the awareness downward into the forehead, also into the temples, and see if you can feel that movement of awareness as it flows down. There is sometimes a noticeable feeling of movement as the awareness moves. And from the forehead, let the awareness move down through the eyebrows and into the eyes. And once again, you're just opening up awareness to sensations, whatever they are. And there's no sensation that you're supposed to be feeling or not supposed to be feeling. It's just whatever you're experiencing. Just be aware. And if there's tension in any of these areas, if the brow is furrowed or the temples are tight, maybe your eyebrows are a little scrunched or your eyes are squinting, any tension in any of these areas, just let it go. Let it leave the body. Tension is not an enemy or a bad thing, but at this time, tension is not needed for what we are doing. So we just let it go. Let it leave the body. And then from the temples, we can guide the awareness downward slowly into the ears. We become aware of the sensations in the ears. And then from here, we move forward into the face. Let awareness pass forward through the cheekbones. Just remaining aware of sensation, letting go of tension as you move through. And then from the eyes, let the awareness move downward through the face, down through the nose. Feel it moving through the lips and mouth and chin. So all of these areas, you're opening up awareness to sensation. Just noticing temperature, air movement, sensations on the surface of the skin. And anywhere you find tension, you just meet it with complete letting go, complete release. So it's possible that your jaws are tight or your teeth are clenched or your lips are pursed. Any of these areas, just notice the tension and let it go. And what's left behind is a feeling of peacefulness, a feeling of calm and stability. And then from the chin, we can guide the awareness downward into the neck. We'll spend just a little bit of time in the throat, in the front of the neck, noticing the sensations there and letting any tension go. And then moving to the sides of the neck, repeating that process of simply observing and releasing. And then moving to the back of the neck, once again observing and letting go. And then we let the awareness begin to move downward into the shoulders, spreading outward, observing the sensations. And if your shoulders are up against the back of a chair or if they're on the floor, you might notice the sensation of contact, or you might notice the sensation of contact between your skin and your clothing in the shoulders. And that would be in addition to the typical sensations of temperature, air movement, and other sensations on the surface of the skin. And then we let the shoulders drop if they're shrugged. And experiencing that peacefulness that we're cultivating, we let the awareness flow downward from the shoulders into our upper arms. And we can begin in the biceps, just observing and letting go, rotating inward to the inside surface of the upper arms, observing and letting go. And then moving around to the backs or the triceps, Really being attentive with awareness, really bringing a quality of being interested to the experience. Observing the sensations in the triceps and then letting the tension go. And then rotating outward to the outside surface of the arms, of the upper arms, from the shoulders all the way down to the elbow joints. So observing and letting go. And then we feel as that soothing awareness begins to move down through the elbow joints. We feel it moving through the forearms, and it continues to move slowly down towards the wrists. Again, just be attentively aware of the sensations and let the tension go, and observe as the awareness flows through the wrists into the hands now. And observe the heels of the hands and the palms of the hands, the different sensations here. You might notice perspiration on the palms of the hands. And then we move around to the tops of the hands, observing the different sensations here, and then spreading through the thumbs and fingers, letting all the tension go. And sometimes it's helpful, even if you're not noticing tension in one specific area, is to just go ahead and release it anyway. And sometimes you'll find that there is some very subtle tension in the body, and you'll feel just a little more peaceful and at ease, allowing that very subtle tension to go. Then we'll bring our awareness to the tips of the fingers and the fingernails. Just spend a few moments here observing, focusing only on the fingernails, becoming aware of any sensations, however subtle, just aware. And then from here we'll move to the top of the chest, so maintain your continuity of awareness. Move the awareness up to the collarbones, and then begin to guide it downward. Let it pass downward through the chest. Let it move downward all the way to the base of the sternum, and then outward through the rib cage. So just observing, releasing, and then from here we bring awareness up to the underarms. From the underarms we allow it to move downward through the sides of the body, feeling it moving all the way down to the waist. And remember, in all these areas, our only task is to observe the sensations and then let the tension go. And so now, from the waist, we can bring our awareness forward into the belly. Begin to observe the belly, sensations of rising and falling with the breath, sensations of expansion and contraction, feeling of the skin and the clothing making contact. Let any tension go in the belly so it can relax completely. And then from the belly, we can move our awareness around to the top of the back. So again, we maintain our continuity of awareness. And beginning at the base of the neck, at the top of the back, we can allow the awareness to move downward through the shoulder blades, through the upper third of the back, just observing the sensations objectively, letting the tension go. And then we let the awareness drift down further through the middle third of the back, again observing with an objective quality, letting tension go, and then moving to the the lower third of the back. Same process, just observing with objectivity, letting the tension go. Sometimes in the back or in other parts of the body, we will encounter sensations that are perhaps difficult or unpleasant. Maybe sensations of fatigue or pain. And in these cases, sometimes it can be difficult to be objective about the sensation because there's pain and we dislike pain. But this reaction to those sensations turns the pain into suffering. So it's helpful to be aware of our relationship to the difficult sensations in our bodies. And rather than generating aversion or disliking, you can use the expansiveness of your awareness to just allow as much space as is needed for the sensations of the body to be just as they are. And you also have enough room in that awareness for your mind to move through without being obstructed or held up by the negative emotions or the unpleasant sensations. In this way, we find that we're able to make peace with the sensations in the body. It doesn't mean we're trying to pretend we like them, but we're just accepting what is true in the present moment without adding any resistance to it. So this is the practice. And then this allows us to release the tension in these areas, further relaxing the body and minimizing the unpleasant sensations. So now we'll let the awareness move downward from the lower back, down into the sit bones. You feel it moving through and then through the hip joints, then through the remainder of the pelvis, bringing that attentive awareness to the sensations. You might notice the feeling of bearing weight on your sit bones or that feeling of contact. So we're just opening up to these sensations, letting tension go. And then from the pelvis, we bring the awareness down into the thighs. And we start with the top surface of the thighs, just observing the sensations there, letting go of the tension. Rotating awareness outward to the outside surface of the thighs. And then we can rotate the awareness to the underside of the thighs. And then finally we rotate into the inside of the thighs. From the tops all the way down to the knee joints. Observing, being aware, letting go. And then allow that flow of awareness to pass through the knees. And if there's discomfort in the knees, use that same technique that we used in the back. Just being aware of kind of the blockage that takes place there around the unpleasant sensation. Allowing your expansive awareness to open up around those difficult sensations. And just allow them to be as they are, without converting the pain into suffering. And then moving from the knees downward into the calves, from the calves downward into the shins. Continue to move the awareness downward through the ankles now. And then finally, move the awareness into the feet, the heels, and then the soles of the feet, the balls of the feet. We move around to the tops of the feet and down into the toes finally. And then we bring awareness to rest in the toenails for a few moments. Just patiently observing. Nothing required here, just observing. See if you notice any sensation. If there's no sensation, no problem. If you notice a sensation, just watch it. And then from the toenails, we'll make the move again back up to the top of the head and to the area of the scalp. And this time at your own pace, you can begin to move your awareness back down through your body. But move it through part by part and try to follow the same path that we follow together. This way, no part of the body is forgotten or left out. But what you discover is that in a very short time, you can observe sensation and release tension in each part of the body. So in a single breath cycle, you can be aware of the scalp. Breathing in, you're aware of the scalp. Breathing out, you release the tension. Breathing in, you're aware of the face. Breathing out, you release the tension. And you can move through the body in this way, using the breath as a tool for moving through. Notice the places in the body where tension has returned. Some of these places you might recognize as places where tension tends to show up in the body. And this tension is a relic of the difficult experiences that we have in the day or in our lives. When we have difficult emotions or things make us mad or sad, the body tenses up as a response. The tension then remains in the body even though we might move on to something else. Tension remains, or it goes away for a period of time and then it comes back. We all hold tension in certain areas rather habitually. So noticing it in this way, we can just release it over and over, knowing what its cause is, knowing that it's a habit. And after working with it in this way, after some time, that habit begins to disappear. And instead, the overwhelming state of the body is one of peacefulness and serenity and calm abiding. So now, after moving your awareness through the body, let's bring our awareness together up to the base of the nose and the little patch of skin there beneath the nostrils and above the upper lip. And we'll just focus on that. Focus on that for a moment, and then we'll expand the awareness to include the rings of the nostrils. And then we'll expand the awareness just a bit further to include the nasal passages. So we have this triangular area of the nose where we have our awareness focused. And now just be aware of the movement of your own breath in and out. So as you breathe in through the nose, you're aware that you're breathing in. And as you're breathing out through the nose, you're aware that you're breathing out. So just be with that movement of the breath. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. Sometimes you might notice that the in-breath is shorter or longer. Sometimes the out-breath might be shorter or longer. So you're with the breath and you're attentive enough to notice the movement of the breath, the length of the in-breath, the length of the out-breath. Try to stay with the breath for its full duration. So you're staying with it as it begins, as it slows down, it tapers off. And in the case of the in-breath, it pauses for a moment and then reverses direction and becomes the out-breath. And you follow the out breath for its full duration, watching as it eventually slows and pauses, and it becomes the next in-breath. So we see from this observation the truth of the continuity of awareness, just observing. And then as you observe, still within the triangular area of the nose, become aware of the feeling of touch anywhere in the nose. So as the breath moves in and out, there is bound to be a sensation of touch somewhere in that triangular area. So observe the sensation of touch, still aware that this is an in-breath, this is an out-breath, this is the sensation of touch. And you can expand your awareness of this touch to become aware of the subtleties of the breath. Breathing in, the air is a little bit cooler than it is when you breathe out. And breathing in, the air is a little bit drier than it is when you breathe out. So we can become aware of these subtleties of the breath. Sometimes you'll notice that there's more air passing through the right nostril or more air passing through the left nostril. And so as you breathe, you're not altering anything, you're just aware of the experience as it unfolds from moment to moment. So sometimes as we observe in this way, focused on the breath, different things will occur that will distract our awareness away from time to time. And the first thing to say about distractions is that they are not a problem. They are not indicating a failure to meditate properly. The mind will be distracted, and to notice the distraction is a wonderful part of the practice. And this is very important. So anytime the mind wanders away from the triangular area of the nose, just be aware of it and gently guide it back. So sometimes sounds will be a distraction. Sounds outside or sounds in the building. And we notice the distraction, notice the mind has wandered away, and we very gently, very compassionately bring it back. No problem. And we might breathe a few more breaths and then notice that there's a strong sensation in the body somewhere, fatigue or an itch or something. In the same way, as soon as you become aware that the mind has wandered from the breath and is now focused on these bodily sensations, just bring it back to the breath. Focus once again on that triangular part of the nose, the movement and the touch and sensations of the breath. And just stay there focused for as long as you can. And sometimes distractions come up as just random thoughts in the mind, images, plans, memories. Noticing this, we respond in the same way. We simply bring the awareness back to the nose. And we find in this very compassionate approach to working with our distractions that the distractions just take care of themselves. We simply refocus awareness on the breath and we let go of the distraction. And letting go of them allows them to leave us. So this is the practice. Let's practice together in silence for a few minutes. Just watching the breath, paying attention to distractions, releasing them and returning to the breath as often as you need to. This is the point of the practice. So let's spend a few minutes together in silence, and then I'll ring the bell to end the meditation. your awareness come back. Feel free to stand or walk or stretch. There is there's tea stuff in the kitchen.
She said, have you talked to Elaine? I said, yeah, she had her picture up.
So if anybody wants a cup of tea, help yourself. Air pot in there and
I
cups.
said that's nice of her,
It is,
and she's doing good.
yeah. She's anxious to get out of here. Get to Arizona.
Is it cold there? Where she is?
Yeah, Omaha, yeah, we're getting a little bit warmer than us. She has to have a tooth pulled tomorrow, and Larry's got to go to one more doctor appointment.
Do you take the garlic and my son-in-law cuts the top off? And he puts
already has-
olive oil,
this is
salt,
all
pepper, and then
also
you
here.
just bakes it in the oven.
She's
And it just,
her
it
own
tastes
here.
like butter. You can spread it on toast or
Really?
crackers,
Back
yeah.
here.
Well, they put it in
This
foil.
one, one of the
Wrap it in
good
foil.
ones.
With a
Mhm.
little olive oil, salt, pepper, and just
And they'll
cook
put
it
that
for,
right
I
in the,
don't know, until it gets soft.
Sounds yummy.
And the stuff just comes off. You just gonna squeeze them right out of there and then they just.
And she was saying.
If they like garlic that much, like.
I love garlic, but I always want to make sure that like whoever I'm going to be spending my time with is also eating garlic.
Yeah,
She
right.
does.
It can come out on your skin too, I mean,
And
it's
she's
just-
having problems, I don't know.
Yes.
Problems. It would be $30,000.
Oh, even.
She said, forget it. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's for me, I was making more trips to the dentist just because they were just breaking off.
Yeah. Wouldn't that something, $30,000?
Huh?
$30,000.
Yeah.
Oh. It doesn't make sense that, you know, your eyes, your ears, and your teeth go when you get
Yeah.
older, and then nothing covers it.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Your hearing,
Yep.
my hearing age.
As soon as I start meditating, my eyes start watering, and I'm just like, going, I can feel.
I get that too, yeah. Yeah, that's why I usually have a little hanky next to me.
Yeah,
Sometimes the eyes water and sometimes they don't.
I know,
But-
just I'm tired, how tired I am, because if I start yawning, then
You don't get much, you haven't been getting much sleep, have you?
I never get my sleep.
So, let's see, we have some handouts here.
Not enough, I wake up at least 3 times during the
Oh,
night.
okay.
Pass some out.
This one is from 2 weeks ago, which I think maybe
We
Meg
finished that last week.
Meg and Judy and Elaine maybe.
They were kind of
Yeah,
looking
Elaine
the ones
wasn't
out
here.
there.
Yeah, and then this
This-
was last week, a
Yeah,
Hankara
the
and
staple ones
Mamankara.
was last week, and we
And
didn't,
was Meg here?
we didn't even get.
I don't think Meg was here last week, no.
Thank you.
That's not this week's, that's the one from a while ago, you just want to make sure you get them.
Yeah, yep, just making sure everybody gets a copy.
And this one's
Yeah, I
last
have
week?
Yeah, the one that says Ahankara and Mamankara, yeah, that was last week.
That was last week, we finished that one.
Ahankara and Mamankara.
Well, I think I was here, wasn't I? Yeah.
I think you were.
It was those
Can you
words.
pronounce that? Thank you.
Exactly, that's how they're pronounced.
I know. Okay, so just.
Thank you. And then this is for tonight, which I think we'll get to.
Oh, are we gonna go through this staple one at last?
Well, the stapled one, we've gone through really most of it.
Okay.
So, but the one thing I did want to ask you is, in the stapled handout, there's a meditation that I usually refer to as the riverbank. Have we done that? Did we do that last week or the week before? Does that sound
You
familiar?
read something at the end last.
Riverbank?
I'm not aware of it.
Okay. I want to set a little time aside to do that meditation tonight then. I'll set a few, thank you very much.
No, we didn't do that one.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll set a few minutes aside at the end so that we can do that, because I wanted to share that one with you. But I wasn't certain if I had done it or not. And Meg, if you want, behind you there's a light, so feel free
As
if
long
you.
as I have my cheaters.
All right.
Do you need it?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
You're
No,
sweating
it's
right
good.
behind you.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem with that.
Oh my gosh, what do you take to get to sleep? Trazodone. I want to take a look at it.
What'd you take?
Trazodone?
So,
It's work. Shuts my monkey mind off.
You want your monkey mind shut off? Yeah.
the handout that I'm working from right now is the one that says finding peace and balance in the face of difficult emotions. So that's the one that's stapled. So I think you either have it or you did receive it at one point in time. I just wanted to touch on a couple things in that. On page 2 of that, I have defining attachment. And this word attachment is something that we use so regularly to describe really the combination of craving, clinging, and aversion that we experience. And those are all considered to be the cause of suffering: craving, clinging, and aversion. So we use that word attachment to sometimes just refer to those all collectively. And I just wanted to review that definition one more time before we go into the other material. Attachment is the belief that obtaining or possessing a certain thing, whether a physical object or a state of consciousness, will lead to long-term happiness, well-being, and lasting satisfaction. In such a way or to such a degree that the loss or change of that object, or even the contemplation of the loss or change of that object, will lead to suffering now or in the future. So that is a definition of the word attachment that I have been crafting. And one of the things that I think has been helpful in my own practice is to try and define some of these terms in my own words, because I really start to develop a deeper understanding of what they mean. I can read the words written by another person and they make sense to me, but there's a real change that takes place in terms of how I'm understanding these when I'm able to kind of write them out myself. What does attachment mean? What do I think it means? What does it feel like to me? So I just thought I'd mention that and encourage you, if you feel like it at some point, just trying to write down, what is attachment? What is craving? What is clinging? What is aversion? What are those things, and why is it that they cause suffering? So it's an interesting thing to ponder. And then, looking at attachment, implicit in attachment is that there is a strong sense of I, or a strong sense of me, or a strong sense of mine. So that's that ahankara and mamankara, which means I making and mine making. So really those two things go hand in hand. I would say that there really can't be any attachment unless there's an I involved in that is attaching. So really it's like you don't think, for example, there needs to be more money. You think, I need more money. Or you don't think everyone needs to be younger. You think, I need to be younger. It's self-referential. It always comes back to me. It always comes back to us. And those are just examples I'm throwing out there, kind of wild examples. But really, for attachment to exist, for craving, for clinging, for aversion to exist, there's got to, implicit in that is that there's this I who is wanting, there's this I who is craving, there's this me who is feeling aversion, there's this me that doesn't want things to happen. So those two things arise together. And the more intense the feeling of I, the stronger the identification with that idea of I, the stronger the attachment, and then the stronger the feeling of suffering that arises as a result of that. So just some simple ways to look at ahankara and mamankara, I making and mine making. So beginning to take things personally, beginning to look at things as the source of lasting happiness, beginning to look at things as, if I could only have that, I'd be satisfied. if I could only get rid of that one person in my life, be separated from them, then I'd be happy, right? This is kind of how we think. There's always something we want. There's always something we want to get rid of. There's always something we have that we want to keep just like it is. And we have an aversion to change. So, again, that's attachment, that's ahankara, and that's mamankara. And then in the last, in this handout here, and then in the one that follows, I kind of wanted to give it to you because it also talks about ahankara and mamankara, and it gives some more detail on it. So there's some repetition there. There's especially this sutta, the Bahia Sutta, that's in both of those handouts. But again, I wanted to give you that second one because there's additional material in here. But this is a teaching, this is the recorded word of the Buddha. There's a story where a spiritual teacher named Bahaya was traveling to try and meet the Buddha, to try and figure out what is the essence of the Buddha's teaching. And he felt a real sense of urgency, like he needed to know this as soon as possible. And so, as the story goes, he went to the town where the Buddha was camping, was doing his retreat. He found out from his monks where he could find the Buddha. The Buddha was in town doing his morning alms round, collecting food for the day. And so Bahaya found him, and he asked him, he said, I need you to explain to me the most important teaching. And the Buddha said, well, if you could wait until after the alms round, I will gladly share the teaching with you. But Bahaya was very insistent. He wanted to know right then and there what the most important thing in the teaching was. What could the Buddha tell him? He had this feeling that he needed to know this soon because somehow he felt like he might not be around very much longer. And so this was very important to him. So the Buddha, kind of realizing this, he said, okay, I'll tell you what is the most important thing. He says, Bahaya, you should train yourself thus. In the seen, there should only be the seen. In the heard, there should only be the heard. In the sensed, there should only be the sensed. In the cognized, there should only be the cognized. Thus, Bahaya, you should train yourself. When, for you, Bahaya, in what is seen there is only the seen, in what is heard there is only the heard, in what is sensed there is only the sensed, in what is cognized only the cognized, then, Bahaya, there is no you in terms of that. When there is no you in terms of that, there is no you there. When there is no you there, you are neither here nor beyond nor between the two. And this, just this, is the end of suffering. So what he was explaining there is that this strong sense of I or mine or me is the thing that's causing the suffering. And so that if you can cultivate unconditioned awareness in that is the end of suffering. So rather than looking at someone, making a set of judgments about that person right away, we tend to experience some negativity, we tend to experience some suffering. If you're able to look at a person and just see the person without judgment, then there's no suffering. So it's this kind of the superimposing of the you and your judgments on top of whatever it is you're experiencing that's creating this feeling of I and me and mine, and that is coloring whatever it is you're looking at, and that's where the suffering comes from. Because everything just as it is on its own is perfect just the way it is.
Did you say that Bahaya thought Bahia wasn't gonna be around much longer, or Bahia thought the Buddha was getting older, wasn't
Bahia thought Bahia wasn't going to be along very longer, and as
Okay.
the legend goes, that afternoon he was stepped on by a cow and killed. So it was kind of an interesting thing. So he wanted to know.
Stepped on or trampled?
Yeah,
Yes.
well, I think he was. Yeah, yep. He was. Yeah, he was cutting. He was heading back home. He had journeyed through a pretty large part of India on foot to go find the Buddha and find out what the teaching was. And so then after he got that teaching on his way home, he was moving through some sort of cow pasture area where he kind of got tangled up with some cows and they backed over him, and that was the end of him. But he did find out the truth. But if you can sort of start to grasp this idea of unconditioned awareness, that is also how the Buddha describes the experience of nirvana or nibbana, or the experience of enlightenment or awakening. It's to experience things as they are without superimposing your own judgments and your own conditioning and your own ideas on top of it. So you're experiencing everything just as it is. And so the implication is that when we're experiencing things through our conditioning, is that we're getting sort of we're not getting the accurate picture. But to look at something without judgment, without evaluation, without saying, oh, that's good or that's bad, we just see things as they are. Now that's not to say that we, would look at horrible injustice, people that are being, murdered or things like that, and we say, oh, well, that's just the way that is and it's fine the way it is. No, we're talking about, kind of in a practical sense, the things that we experience on a daily basis. So many of the things we look at, there's judgments about, and it happens so unconsciously, it happens so quickly that we're often not aware of it. So the task here is to develop a level of mindfulness that you're aware of that tendency to continually judge what's going on around you, and to notice how the judgment clouds your experience. So, and you'll find that, seldom does that judgment work in your favor. It usually is working against you to cause some negativity. I had an experience last week that I'll share because it might be helpful to you. It was either Thursday or Friday of next week, or last week, I'm sorry. Either Thursday or Friday of last week. And I think it may have been Friday, because Friday is one day that I don't have any classes here at all. And so I was here alone, just kind of doing little chores and projects here in the center. And I found myself feeling more and more kind of melancholy as the day was going on. It was kind of I think it was kind of a cloudy, sort of rainy, gloomy day, not a lot of light. It looked kind of bleak. And I just sort of felt myself just sort of dropping down into this feeling of depression, and this feeling of kind of reacting to that, like dread, geez, I don't want to feel like I'm going into a depression, and it's only, late fall, and I'm already starting to feel this way. And so anyway, I sort of caught myself. I realized that, all right, I'm feeling this way, but I'm also adding a whole lot of thought stuff right on top of that feeling of being melancholy or depressed. And so as soon as I realized that, the first thing I did was I sat down on my cushion to meditate. And in this case, and as I often do if I'm here alone and meditating, I'll just set my cushion right in front of the Buddha and face the Buddha and meditate there. But anyway, I started meditating, did the same meditation that we do together each night when we do our meditations together. I did that same meditation, but then when I got to the breathing portion of the meditation, I continued for another little more than an extra half an hour. So it was like an hour and some sit. And then that meditation ended, and I got up and just started moving around again. and noticed that my whole attitude had really turned around. And what happens in doing that is that we start to tell ourselves stories about what our experiences are, and then we start to react to the stories, and that affects the experience, and pretty soon we're in this kind of spiral of negativity, you know? And I think we all kind of operate that way. So the wonderful thing about meditation is that you sit down to do it, and you know, you're calming the body and you're doing some things that make you feel better anyway. But what you are doing is you are actively stopping that process of thinking about things and reacting and making up the stories. Because for me, there were like two things. It was like boy, I feel a little down in the dumps today. The weather's kind of crappy and I feel kind of bummed out by that. That was the one feeling. But then to that, it was, boy, I hope I don't go into a deeper depression, and it's only the beginning of cold weather, and this could get really bad, and geez, I live here alone and I feel lonely now. And so it's like adding story after story after story, and each one of those little layers made it worse. And each one of those little stories that I added was about me, in mine, and how I feel and what I want. And so I'm sorry.
Isn't that part of judging those things?
Yeah, there's judgment there, but it's really, it's the word a lot of times we use is papancha, which means mental proliferation. And so the mind, you think about one thing, and that sort of triggers another thought, and then that triggers something else, and before you know it, you've thought through so many different things and kind of added them to this collection. So there can be judgment to that, but really for me it was just noticing, hey, I can see what I'm doing here. I notice that I feel a certain way, but now I'm starting to react to how I feel, and it's not in a helpful way. So let me sit down and meditate, which I know is wholesome and helpful and healthy. And in the process of meditating, because our thoughts are directed and our mind is focused, it disrupted that pattern of negative thought, and it disrupted it long enough that it was done. So it had kind of run its course. So I wanted to share that because that's kind of an example of this I-making and mind-making and this making up stories and narratives about ourselves, and how often it is that those stories make us feel worse about where we are and what maybe is going to happen next, because we worry about things like that. It's going to be a long, cold winter of depression.
I know, that's just what I was going through.
Yeah, and so it's really wonderful to actually try that meditation practice as a way of just very gently stopping that thought tornado, that negative thought tornado. Sitting down and meditating, focusing on these wholesome aspects of meditation, and it just stops the negative stuff from flowing in. So, and then I did it for about a half an hour, and I thought, well, I'm feeling better, I'm going to go for another half hour, so I did. So I ended up going for a little more than an hour, but it was just very helpful, very effective. So I wanted to share that because I know a lot of people have like a little bit of seasonal affect disorder because this time of year can be tough. But also there's just all the other human stuff that every one of us are going through at any given time, and so this can be helpful with that too. So consider meditation to be something that not only do you just do it as kind of part of your daily practice, but you can also do it as a, hey, I need a little extra help right now. What should I do? And, probably all of us have prescriptions for some sort of Xanax or alprazolam or lorazepam or some kind of thing like that. And so sometimes the habit can be to go take a couple of those when we start to feel down. But of course, those are depressants. They help with anxiety, but they don't really help you feel any better. So this is such a healthy alternative. You can just try that next time you're thinking about a couple of Xanax. Maybe just sit for sit for an extended meditation and see if that does the trick for you, but I think it might. I think it might. So it's a way of stopping that mental proliferation and that I and mine. Let's see. We're doing okay on time. I'm thinking what I was going to do is move into the next teaching, but I wanted to share this riverbank guided imagery meditation with you. And it's possible some of you who have been meditating with me for many years have done this before. But it's a wonderful meditation, and it's a little different from the kind of meditation we normally do, so I wanted to share it. This is guided imagery, so if you have a good imagination, this might be a very helpful meditation for you. And it's all written out in detail on pages 4 through 7 of that handout with the staple. So if you wanted to, you could duplicate this perfectly. Or you could listen to tonight's talk online and just do it that way. But so just a little introduction to that, the riverbank guided imagery for equanimity. So I'm on page 4 of that handout. When we experience things like stress, worry, or ill will, we often refer to these as afflictive emotions. It can feel like we're stuck, and it can be difficult to find relief when we're caught up in a cycle of feeling afflictive emotions and then reacting to them. So this is really what I was talking about just a few minutes ago. The reactions fuel the feelings, and the feelings lead to more reactions. Meditation gives us a tool to interrupt that cycle, and when the cycle is interrupted, we can find true peace. Now, the nice thing about our practice is that there's not just one type of meditation that allows you to achieve that state, but there's many. And so sometimes this guided imagery meditation is just the ticket. We tend to have a lot of thoughts in the mind, and we take those thoughts as, this is me. You know, I think something and I think, you know, that's me. You know, maybe I'm not smart enough, or maybe I'm not young enough, or maybe I'm too young, or maybe, you know, just one thing after another. And we're taking on all of these different thoughts as being true and as being true statements about us, right? And quite often they're just not helpful. And so in meditation, there's also this technique called noting, which you are probably familiar with. That's the technique where when you notice something, rather than internalizing it and personalizing it, you're sort of objectifying it. You're saying, well, there's the mind thinking, there's the mind remembering, there's the mind having an angry thought, there's the mind having a sad thought. You're kind of aware of the mind in an objective sense, like you're observing it, and so that takes you out of the actual experience of being in it, if that makes sense. But you're not doing it in a way where you're kind of creating denial. You're doing it in a way where you've got a safe and healthy distance from it, which allows you to work with it skillfully, you know. So that allows room for the wisdom mind to come in, rather than the reactive mind just taking over. So that can be very helpful. So this guided imagery on the riverbank, we use just a few different images, but it's a way of kind of noting our emotions and not internalizing them and saying, yeah, this is me. Because otherwise, you know, I'd still be stuck with, I'm the depressed person, it's the beginning of winter, it's going to be terrible, I don't know how I'm going to do it, I feel really lonely, you know, these kinds of things. Not healthy ways to think. So it's not denial, but it is creating this healthy separation. So the best way to do this is to do this. So why don't we practice it together? So you don't need to read along. You can just close your eyes. This will just take us a few minutes, so if you want to change positions, feel free. But we'll just sit together in this peacefulness, in this wonderful place. Let your eyes close. And let yourself be comfortable in your body. Just allow yourself to rest and balance. And now I'm just going to ask you to imagine yourself out in nature on a beautiful, warm day. And you're out in a park, a big state park. It's beautiful, trees all around you. You're walking on a footpath. Try to imagine the scenery around you, the trees, the gravel beneath your feet on the footpath. Looking up, you see the blue sky through the trees. You can hear birds chirping and singing. You can hear the sound of insects. You can see the trees, the leaves shimmering as they blow in the wind. See the grass and the vegetation. And this whole experience is just very beautiful. You're walking, you're perfectly safe and content and comfortable in every way. You feel the warm sunshine shining down on your head and shoulders. And you're just enjoying this experience of walking through nature. And after a few minutes of walking, you come upon a little creek, a little river running through the park. And it's just beautiful. And so you decide to sit down beside the river. You sit on a little patch of soft green grass right alongside. Sit down. You can kind of feel the grass in your hands as you put your hands down as you're sitting. You feel the grass. The river is flowing right in front of you. You can see the water. You can see the stones. You can hear maybe the gurgling of the water as it's passing over the stones. Just this beautiful scene in nature. You're safely seated beside the river, and your only task is to watch the water flow by. You just sit and watch the water flow by. And after some time sitting here, you notice that a thought arises in your mind, and it is a thought of worry. And at the same time, a bubble appears on the surface of the river. Just a little bubble. It appears, and you place that feeling of worry right on that bubble on top of the river, on the surface of the river, and you just watch it flowing past. And you observe as it moves downstream a little bit, maybe it swirls around a little bit, and pretty soon it passes out of sight, and it's just gone. And then the mind is quiet, you're watching the river passing by, and maybe another thought comes to mind, and it's a thought of some kind of anxiety. And as soon as this thought of anxiety arises in the mind, you see a bubble arise on the surface of the water, and you just place that feeling of anxiety right on that bubble. And then you watch as that feeling of anxiety in the bubble moves slowly downstream. Maybe it just gets a few feet away, and then it pops and vanishes into the air and into the water. Then another thought arises in the mind. Maybe this is a thought of anger. And so again, like before, you see a bubble arising in the river, and this becomes the bubble of anger. You place the anger on the bubble and you watch. You just watch as the flow of the river takes that bubble downstream. It moves a ways down, and eventually you lose sight of it. And again, there's quiet in the mind. And so now with each and every thought that arises in the mind, you're placing it on a bubble on the river, on the surface of the river, and you're just watching as it moves through consciousness, as it moves downstream. We're seeing our own consciousness as the river, always flowing, always moving, Always something new arising and passing away. Always something new arising and passing away. And so we begin to see our thoughts as arising and passing away, never lasting too terribly long. And so we know that these thoughts are very impermanent. They're also very fragile. They don't last long, and it doesn't take much to make them pop. It doesn't take much to make them change. And so in this way, we learn that our own thoughts, they're just as impermanent. They're just as fragile. They only last for a very short period of time before they vanish or before they are replaced by something else. And so we think to ourselves, how much sense does it make for me to take on these thoughts and emotions, or for me to take on these bubbles on the surface of the river as being me or I or mine? Which one of these momentary thoughts defines me? Which one of these very impermanent emotions is who I am? And the answer is none of these. These are all thoughts that arise, flow through consciousness, and pass away. These are all emotions that arise, they float through consciousness, and they pass away. So you see all of your negative emotions arising, appearing as bubbles, moving downstream, vanishing into the nothingness from which they originated. And you find yourself feeling more and more free, not identifying with anything, just observing. And in that observation, there is a real feeling of peacefulness, of stability, of safety, and of confidence in knowing that you are okay. So just sit with that thought for a moment. Sit being aware of the bubbles passing. Try to get used to that idea of placing your thoughts and emotions on the bubbles and then watching them passing away. Watching them pass out of sight. Which one of these is worth identifying as me, as my permanent self, or as who I am? The real you is the you that observes. You are the awareness. You're not the bubbles. You're not the thoughts. You're the awareness in which all of this takes place. So just be with that for a moment. Just sit with that, sit with your breath, the peacefulness.
Good.
Like that? The first time I did that meditation, I was sitting at the side of the river, watching the bubbles go by. And I had been backpacking. My daughter was with me. We had been backpacking for a couple of days at that point. And she was in high school, and she came and sat next to me. And she shared that, she was worrying about different things and that she had different things that were bothering her. And, it was kind of the normal stuff that you'd expect from a high school age student. And so we started to talk about how those thoughts in the mind arise and how they seem so much like they're us. And so So then I started to point out the bubbles and just asked her to do that as we watched, and she found it very helpful. But since then, I've used it as an ongoing practice, and I find it really helpful in my own practice. So it's a guided imagery, a little different from what we normally do, but I think these can be very helpful. Sometimes just having a few different options in your toolkit is a good thing. So, yeah, so that's where we're at for that.
What about regret?
Explain a little more.
Well, you can't undo it, and it isn't, and it is real.
Mm-hmm. So what to do with the strong feelings of regret?
Right.
Well, metta practice is a really helpful thing to do. One of the things that I do, well, I become aware of the fact that everybody's done things that they regret. Everybody's done things that they wish they hadn't done or had experiences like that. So, I mean, none of us are alone in that. But the feeling of regret can really, kind of take over a big part of your consciousness, and it can kind of weigh you down. And I think one of the most helpful things we can do practice-wise is to do metta practice, which is the loving kindness practice. And actually, I think I even covered this not too long ago, but I have it in this next handout. So I tell you what, we can, did we hand out this one today? So everybody has
What's it
today.
say?
It says morning recitations?
Yes, yeah.
Everybody's got morning recitations?
Yep.
Okay. Well, we've got 5 minutes left, which is enough time to do the metta practice. So why don't we do this one together? This is helpful. So the first thing is to know that there's not one person that doesn't have regrets. There's not one person that, wouldn't change something about something they've done or said in the past or thought. So that's a normal part of being a human being. And it's also an indication that you have a degree of awareness because you know that this is happening. So that's good. Some people will do things that are kind of regretful, but they never care enough to think about it. So I think that it's wonderful that, when you think about it and you think, yeah, there's some unfinished business here in my heart because of this feeling of regret. And so one of the things that's most helpful is this metta practice, and that is located at the bottom of page 3 of this morning recitations handout. And so why don't we do this together? And I'll lead it, and we'll see if you like it. So once again, I would just ask you to close your eyes, and I'll share the words, and you can just let yourself feel it. Just let yourself feel it. So to begin with, we start with ourselves. And I have a little note on here that even though you've made mistakes in life and have caused others pain, you still deserve happiness. So with that, close your eyes. I'll say these words, and you just try to feel them. You just try to feel them in your heart and in your spirit and your soul and your head. Wherever it is, those deepest, most potent feelings come from, just feel them emanating from that place, and I'll share these words with you. So we start with ourselves. May I be well. May I be safe. May I be free from suffering. May I be free from the causes of suffering. May I be loved and cared for. May I be the recipient of love and kindness. May I be surrounded by love and kindness. May I be happy. May I be blissful. May I be joyful. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be free. May I be equanimous. So you're really offering yourself this beautiful gift of loving kindness. And you're really receiving it too. You're offering it to yourself and you're receiving it. And now, bring to mind the image of someone that you love very deeply. Family member, partner, very good friend, anybody you love. Just bring to mind that person. Imagine that they're sitting right next to you right now, sitting with you here, and you have this gift to offer them. And so you say these words to them. May you be well. May you be safe. May you be free from suffering. May you be free from the causes of suffering. May you be loved and cared for. May you be the recipient of love and kindness. May you be surrounded by love and kindness. May you be happy. May you be blissful. May you be joyful. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be free. May you be equanimous. And you just feel that pouring out of your heart, pouring out of your spirit to this person, just giving it to this person you love as a gift. And you see them receiving it, and you see them smiling and enjoying that. And they get up and they put their hands together and they bow to you and they say thank you, and they leave the room. And in their place comes a person that you don't really know. It's a kind of a neutral person. Maybe somebody you've seen around, but you don't really have a strong opinion of them. Don't really know them. But this neutral person sits down, you look at them and you think, just like I've experienced suffering and done things that I regret and wish I could change, this neutral person has certainly had those same experiences, but they too deserve happiness. And so now to this neutral person, you're seeing them, they're sitting right in front of you now. And so you say this to them, you're offering them this wonderful gift. And you say to them, may you be well. May you be safe. May you be free from suffering. May you be free from the causes of suffering. May you be loved and cared for. May you be the recipient of love and kindness. May you be surrounded by love and kindness. May you be happy. May you be blissful. May you be joyful. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be free. May you be equanimous. And so this person who was neutral as they sat down in front of you, they're no longer a neutral person, because you extended them this genuine love and kindness, and they received it. And so now they stand and they bow to you with their hands together, and they thank you for this wonderful gift, and they leave the room. And then they are replaced by someone that you might refer to as a difficult person. Somebody who has caused you to suffer in some way, somebody who's caused you some sort of pain in your life. So it's a person that you have a difficult time opening your heart to. But this person comes in and they sit before you, and you look at them and you realize, they too, just like me, have done things that they regret. And they've done these things out of their own pain, out of their own ignorance, and they too deserve to be happy. And so you say to this difficult person, and now during this part, just offer what you can genuinely and truthfully. If you don't feel like you can love this person genuinely, then that's okay. But if you feel like you can just offer any degree of compassion, then offer that. Whatever you can offer this person. But they sit before you, and so we say to them, may you be well. this difficult person. May you be safe. May you be free from suffering, and may you be free from the causes of suffering. May you be loved and cared for. May you be the recipient of love and kindness. May you be surrounded by love and kindness. May you be happy. May you be blissful. May you be joyful. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be free. May you be equanimous. And so you sit there and enjoy a few moments of peaceful silence with this difficult person. And you're offering whatever you can genuinely. And you don't have to worry about anything else. If you're not able to offer it, that's fine. And this person stands up, and you see them bow to you, and they place their hands together, and they say, thank you. Thank you, I appreciate that. And that person gets up and leaves the room. And now, somehow we have the image of all beings in the world, all beings in the universe. Maybe you see the globe, maybe you see just countless numbers of people standing or gathered, or animals or insects or fish or birds, but you see all living beings. And now you just open up your heart, you spread your arms, and you feel this beaming out of you, and to all of these beings you say, may you be well, may you be safe, may you be free from suffering, may you be free from the causes of suffering, may you be loved and cared for, may you be the recipient of love and kindness, may you be surrounded by love and kindness, may you be happy, may you be blissful, may you be joyful, may you be peaceful and at ease, may you be free, may you be equanimous. So just rest in the spirit of those wonderful statements of metta, of loving kindness, of well wishes. And there's a warm feeling in the heart and the spirit as we offer these beautiful wishes to others. And again, we realize the wisdom of this practice is that everyone makes mistakes. Everyone does things they regret. Everyone has said things that they wish they hadn't said. And we all share this as human beings. But we also all share this right to be happy and well and peaceful and free. And so by offering these wishes of loving kindness, we can displace those feelings of regret that we experience sometimes, or those feelings of harsh self-judgment. We can displace those feelings with these very genuine feelings of love and kindness and wishes of peacefulness. So may that be so. And this is really very much like the 4 Brahma-viharas that we typically end with. And we went just a little long, so I'll let that be considered our 4 Brahma-vihara practice for the end of our time together tonight. So, to all of you sharing this space with me tonight, I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful that you're here and that you can be present and that you can share these wonderful evenings in this wonderful Dhamma practice. May you be truly, truly happy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
incidentally, this is the morning recitations. Meg, for you to know,
Yes,
The-
I asked, I'm waiting.
yep,
You tell me.
the 5 remembrances, they are in here.
Okay.
So all 5 remembrances, but if you bring this next week, we'll spend a few minutes in the beginning going through these as morning recitations and kind of some of the teachings behind them, and then we'll move into something new.
You gotta get the wool socks
I'm
out.
glad I have.
Time to get the wool socks out.
Yes,
The wool sweaters, I need to get through my sweater chest and get the wool out.
yeah, I have a lot of my stuff in a storage locker after moving out of my other house, and I still have a lot I have to bring over here, but yeah, I saw my sweaters in there the other day, and I'm resisting bringing stuff because I'm putting it upstairs, and I still have to finish it up there.
Yeah.
So eventually I'm gonna have to move all that stuff out, so
Yeah,
I'm kind of resisting.
well, it was really nice today to be warm and fuzzy in my wool. I was